The Stellar revelation? Why XLM is the most criminally underpriced asset in crypto. Today, picture this, it's 2012. You're scrolling through obscure tech forums, watching some guy explain how digital magic internet money called Bitcoin could revolutionize finance. Most people rolled their eyes. The media laughed. Wall Street ignored it completely. Fast forward 13 years, and those same skeptics are paying $30,000 for what they once dismissed as nerd money. Here's the uncomfortable truth that'll make your stomach drop. We're witnessing this exact same pattern play out right now with Stellar. While everyone's chasing meme coins and arguing about Ethereum gas fees, a sovereign government just launched the world's first blockchain-based national currency. Not a pilot, not a test. A live, operational digital dollar backed by the Republic of Palau's Ministry of Finance. But here's where it gets wild. 99% of crypto investors have no idea this even happened. Before we dive into why this changes everything, smash that subscribe button if you want to stay ahead of the institutional money flows. This channel isn't for people who buy tops and sell bottoms. We're here to identify paradigm shifts before they become obvious. The sovereign stablecoin revolution that nobody's talking about. Let me paint you a picture that'll blow your mind. While crypto Twitter was obsessing over the latest dog coin, the Republic of Palau quietly made history. They launched the Palau stablecoin, a fully government-backed, US dollar-pegged digital currency that operates on blockchain infrastructure. This isn't some experimental sandbox project. This is a sovereign nation replacing traditional monetary infrastructure with programmable money. According to the Office of Public Auditor's report, Ripple provided $25,000 in funding for the pilot phase, which processed over $14,000 in real transactions through participating vendors and 154 government volunteers. But here's the kicker. This validates something far more significant than the dollar amount suggests. When a sovereign government stakes its reputation on blockchain technology for national monetary policy, that's not a trend, that's an inflection point. Now, you might think, Palau's tiny, who cares? That's exactly what people said about Estonia's e-residency program, El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption, and Singapore's fintech regulations. Small nations move fast and set precedents that larger economies eventually follow. If Palau's pilot succeeds and early reports suggest it's exceeding expectations, we're looking at a domino effect across Pacific Island nations, Caribbean banking hubs, and emerging market economies. Coming up, the infrastructure deal that creates the largest cash-to-crypto network in human history. But first, let me explain why Stellar's technology makes this sovereign adoption possible when other blockchains can't even handle basic payments reliably. MoneyGram's secret weapon. 475,000 physical locations. One digital network. This changes everything, and most people still don't get it. MoneyGram operates 475,000 agent locations across 200+ countries. That's more physical touchpoints than most major banks. Through their partnership with Stellar, they've created what's essentially a global cash-to-crypto ATM network that processes transactions in seconds, not days. Here's what this means in practice. A freelancer in Nigeria receives payment from a client in London directly into their Stellar wallet. They walk to the nearest MoneyGram location, and there are thousands across Nigeria, and convert their USDC to local Naira instantly. No bank account required. According to the latest data, this partnership has processed nearly $30 million in transactions since launch, with the service now extending to over 170 countries. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about remittances. MoneyGram's integration enables something unprecedented, a bridge between the cash economy and the digital economy. Think about this logically. There are 1.7 billion unbanked adults worldwide. Traditional financial institutions have failed to serve these populations for decades, but 80% of them have mobile phones. Stellar plus MoneyGram creates the infrastructure to turn every mobile phone into a bank account, with global reach and local cash access. But wait, there's more. The humanitarian applications are mind-blowing. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has distributed over $1.1 million in direct aid to Ukrainian displaced populations using Stellar's infrastructure. UNHCR reports potential annual savings of $60 million by replacing traditional aid distribution with blockchain-based systems. When the UN stakes its reputation on your technology, that's not adoption, that's validation. Franklin Templeton's $450 and $45 million vote of confidence. Let's talk numbers that'll make your head spin. Franklin Templeton, one of the world's largest asset managers with over $1.5 trillion under management, has tokenized $445 million of their on-chain US government money fund on blockchain infrastructure, including Stellar. This isn't play money. This is real institutional capital flowing through blockchain rails. Here's why this is absolutely massive. Real-world asset tokenization exploded from $5 billion in 2022 to over $24 billion by June 2025. That's 380% growth, but we're just getting started. Industry projections suggest the RWA market could reach anywhere from $2 trillion to $30 trillion by 2030 to 2034. Stellar is positioning itself to capture a significant chunk of this tsunami. According to the Stellar Development Foundation's Q1 2025 report, total RWA supply on Stellar reached $757 million, with the network targeting $3 billion by year-end 2025. That's a 10x increase, representing one of the largest institutional adoption waves in crypto history. Think about that for a second. They're not talking about 50% growth or doubling their numbers. They're targeting 1,000% growth in institutional-grade assets. But here's the secret sauce that most people miss. Traditional RWA tokenization faces massive friction, complex custody arrangements, regulatory uncertainty, and expensive infrastructure requirements. Stellar solves these problems at the protocol level through built-in compliance controls, deterministic finality, and institutional-grade asset clawback functionality. When financial institutions can deploy tokenized assets with the same regulatory comfort as traditional securities, adoption accelerates exponentially. Soroban smart contracts, the compliance-first revolution. Now this might blow your mind. While Ethereum burns through billions in gas fees and struggles with unpredictable costs, Stellar launched Soroban, a smart contract platform that costs under a cent per transaction with deterministic fee pricing. You know what that means? Businesses can actually forecast their operational expenses. According to Blockworks analysis, Stellar asset contract tokens demonstrate 97% less CPU usage, 98% less RAM consumption, and 47% lower fees compared to traditional smart contract platforms. But here's the real kicker. Soroban was built specifically for financial compliance from day one. While other platforms retrofit compliance as an afterthought, Stellar made it the foundation. Let me give you a real-world example that'll make this concrete. Luis, a remote worker in Mexico, receives his salary in USDC via the Stellar disbursements platform. He can cash out locally through MoneyGram or send money to family abroad, all with sub-second settlement times and minimal fees. This isn't theoretical DeFi. This is practical financial infrastructure replacing broken correspondent banking networks. The numbers back this up. Soroban processed over 8.4 million transactions in Q2 2025 alone, with total value locked reaching $140.7 million following PayPal's PYUSD integration. Smart contracts on Stellar have grown from zero to production-scale deployment in just over a year. That's infrastructure velocity that makes Silicon Valley startups jealous. Protocol 23, the 5,000 TPS monster nobody saw coming. Here's where things get absolutely wild. Stellar's Protocol 23 upgrade, scheduled for mainnet activation, introduces multi-threaded smart contract execution and parallel processing capabilities, targeting 5,000 transactions per second. For context, Ethereum processes 15 TPS. Bitcoin handles 7 TPS. Stellar is targeting 5,000 TPS with sub-second finality. But speed isn't everything. It's the cost structure that changes the game. While Ethereum's gas fees spiked to $50 during network congestion, Stellar maintains sub-cent transaction costs regardless of network demand. When central banks and financial institutions deploy CBDCs or process millions of micropayments, predictable costs aren't optional, they're mandatory. The Stellar Development Foundation has committed $100 million through their Soroban Adoption Fund to accelerate ecosystem development. Over 160 projects received funding during the testnet phase, with applications spanning DeFi, trade, finance, and institutional asset management. This isn't just throwing money at developers, it's strategically building the infrastructure that tomorrow's financial system will run on. The institutional capital rotation thesis. From ETH to XLM, here's the pattern that makes smart money rich. Institutional capital enters crypto in predictable waves. First Bitcoin, then Ethereum, then large-cap altcoins with proven utility. Tom Lee's Bitmine accumulation of 833,137 Ethereum, worth $2.9 billion, represents classic Phase 2 positioning. Combined with record $5.4 billion July ETF inflows into Ethereum products, we're witnessing massive institutional capital deployment. But here's where it gets interesting. As Ethereum approaches overbought technical levels, smart money seeks the next undervalued infrastructure play with regulatory clarity and real-world utility. XLM trades at $0.39 with a $12.2 billion market cap. That's a fraction of Ethereum's $380 billion valuation, despite comparable real-world adoption metrics. The math is staggering. Coinbase reports that 98% of retail users are buying XLM rather than selling, with the token ranking as the number 5 most popular crypto on the platform. Institutional wallets holding 1-10 million XLM grew 37% in Q2 2025, according to on-chain data. When retail and institutional money both accumulate quietly, that's classic pre-breakout behavior. Think about this. If just 5% of incoming ETH ETF capital rotates into XLM, approximately $200 million monthly, that represents 0.6% of XLM's total market cap entering every single month. In a market with sub-$1 billion daily trading volume, that level of sustained buying pressure creates explosive price dynamics. The network effect acceleration. Why Stellar's ecosystem is exploding? Let me break down something that'll make your jaw drop. When sovereign governments issue stablecoins, MoneyGram enables global cash access, Franklin Templeton tokenizes institutional assets, and humanitarian organizations distribute aid all on the same network infrastructure. The result is a financial operating system with network effects. The numbers prove this is happening at scale. Total addresses on Stellar surpassed 8.4 million in Q2 2024, growing by over 400,000 addresses in a single quarter. Daily operations consistently exceed 1.5-2 million transactions, with peaks above 2.4 million following major protocol upgrades. Monthly active accounts reached 10.29 million, representing a 28% quarter-over-quarter increase. These aren't vanity metrics, this is sustained utility growth. But here's the secret that separates Stellar from every other blockchain. Each new participant increases utility for existing users. When Palau issues sovereign stablecoins that work with MoneyGram's cash network, humanitarian organizations can distribute aid more efficiently, and Franklin Templeton can offer global liquidity for institutional assets, all using the same infrastructure. That's textbook network effect acceleration. Lightbulb moment. Visa announced partnerships with Stellar for cross-border payment improvements, while Circle expanded USDC support across Stellar's ecosystem. When payments giants and stablecoin leaders choose your infrastructure over alternatives, that's market validation money can't buy. The Bitcoin 2012 parallel. Infrastructure before recognition now. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for people who missed Bitcoin. In 2012, Bitcoin traded between $5 and $20 while building merchant adoption, exchange integrations, and mining ecosystem development. The technology worked, real economic activity occurred, but mainstream recognition lagged infrastructure development by years. Sound familiar? XLM in 2025 mirrors that exact pattern. Trading under $0.45 despite live government stablecoin deployment, global remittance infrastructure, and institutional asset tokenization. But here's the kicker. Stellar's current infrastructure surpasses what Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Solana possessed at comparable price points. Bitcoin 2012 had emerging merchant adoption. Stellar 2025 has sovereign government integration. Ethereum 2015 had experimental smart contracts. Stellar 2025 has production, grade, compliance, first programming. The disconnect is criminal. Enterprise partnerships with IBM, historically, MoneyGram, Circle, Franklin Templeton, and United Nations agencies demonstrate production-ready infrastructure. Yet, retail attention remains focused on speculative narratives rather than fundamental utility. That's exactly where 100x opportunities are born, in the gap between reality and recognition. Energy efficiency, the ESG advantage nobody's discussing. Here's something that'll make environmentally conscious institutions take notice. Stellar processes transactions at 0.173 watts per transaction, orders of magnitude lower than Bitcoin's energy-intensive mining. This aligns perfectly with corporate ESG mandates and government sustainability requirements, increasingly driving institutional blockchain adoption decisions. When major corporations and sovereign governments evaluate blockchain infrastructure, energy consumption isn't optional, it's mandatory. Stellar's consensus mechanism achieves global financial infrastructure with minimal environmental impact, removing a major barrier to institutional adoption. This isn't just good for the planet, it's good for business. Hidden Road acquisition, the $1.25 billion infrastructure play. This changes everything, and most people completely missed it. Ripple acquired Hidden Road, a prime brokerage firm, for $1.25 billion, creating institutional-grade infrastructure for XRP settlements. While Ripple builds institutional rails, Stellar builds inclusive rails, and guess which approach captures larger addressable markets? The strategic implications are massive. Ripple targets 300+ financial institutions across 7 continents with permission network access. Stellar enables anyone, anywhere, to access the same financial infrastructure through 475,000 MoneyGram locations and anchor networks spanning 180 countries. Institutional adoption is valuable, but universal access is transformational. Real-world asset tokenization. The $30 trillion opportunity. Let me hit you with numbers that'll make your calculator break. The global asset market is worth approximately $280 trillion. Academic research indicates that even 1% blockchain migration represents $2.8 trillion in tokenized value. Stellar's compliance-first architecture and regulatory cooperation frameworks position it perfectly for capturing institutional migration. According to the Stellar Development Foundation, current RWA volume of $757 million is targeting $3 billion by year-end 2025. That's just the beginning. Industry projections suggest RWA tokenization could reach $30 trillion by 2034 as traditional finance migrates onto blockchain rails. When trillion-dollar asset managers choose your infrastructure for fiduciary-grade products, that's not speculation, that's market selection. The geographic advantage. First mover in emerging markets. Here's a strategic insight that'll change how you think about blockchain adoption. While Ethereum and Bitcoin compete in Western markets with existing financial infrastructure, Stellar dominates regions where blockchain provides immediate, tangible benefits over legacy systems. Africa represents 1.4 billion people with 80% mobile phone penetration, but only 40% traditional bank account access. Stellar's partnerships with Flutterwave enable instant dollar transfers across 20 African countries with 80% cost reductions compared to traditional remittance providers. This isn't incremental improvement. This is economic inclusion at continental scale.